Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick Hurling podcast with your host, Mark Kennedy, joined this week again by regular contributors Kieran Collins and Rory Walsh. And we're absolutely delighted and honoured to have the legend that is Charlie Carter with us tonight. Lads, how are things?
Very good, Mark. Yourself?
Good, Mark. Good, Mark.
Great. Charlie, how are things anyway? I see that you're busy managing up in the Big Smoke this year with Luke and Sarsfields. How's that all going for you?
Yeah, look, it took on the role, Mark, last February, and look, really enjoying it. Had our first championship match last Friday evening, again, Kilmacud, and we're both missing a few players, but we came out the right side of a 4-point victory. So, look, it's nice to have the 2 points in the bag, but that's all it really is.
Great stuff. No, it's a great start anyway. I know the Crummies are in the club there as well, so big, massive potential there in Luke and this year.
Paul is round all right. Unfortunately, Chris in Australia, and I just can't get the Australian authorities to kick him out. So we'll have to go without him.
You never know. With the World Cup and everything else, he might come home for the Hurling Championship. But I suppose, guys, our focus is on the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship final. It's a repeat of last year's epic encounter between Limerick and Kilkenny. And I suppose, guys, we'll kind of look at the paths that the two teams have had this season with the final. We'll look at some of the key matchups that you feel may be decisive. And kind of get a few predictions from you. I know it could be a bit partisan here, given the demographic, but we'll give it our best shot. I suppose, guys, Charlie, I suppose from the Kilkenny perspective, there's been a change in management. Legendary Brian Cody departed. Derek Ling has taken over. And I suppose it'd be fair to say that Kilkenny haven't missed a beat this season. I suppose, can you get your thoughts in terms of the season so far?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose Derek has a lot of experience. He was with Brian for maybe 7 or 8 years before he went on his own route in the under-20s. And he landed a title again, Limerick, last year. So loads of experience, a very sound guy, and has a good backroom team with him. And, the Derek Ling era is definitely up and running. I suppose it was great to get that bit of silverware for him, I suppose, especially in the Leinster final, and I suppose, he's definitely putting his own stamp on the team this year. There's a lot more of the short game being played, so, and where Brian mightn't have been comfortable playing the short game, Derek is very comfortable playing a mixture of the short and the long game, so definitely the Derek Ling era is up and running anyway, yeah.
And Mikey Butler getting up scoring goals wouldn't be a typical thing you'd see in the Cody times either, would it?
No, because I remember years ago, someone, when Ollie Wells started Mercian was managing the team, someone gave a back pass to Mickey in the goal. Because Ollie nearly had palpitations in a dugout, but it's just the way it's gone.
Yeah, they're all hurlers now.
You have to move with the times, and you mean cornerbacks are going up the field, whether it be club hurling or intercounty hurling, and if they get in range, they're not afraid to pull the trigger. Now, scoring goals, all right. I think Mikey enjoyed that one, all right.
Yeah, absolutely quality finish from Mikey, particularly in that Leinster Hurling final. I suppose, Kieran, get you in here. I suppose if we're kind of treating it from the Limerick representative viewpoint, you're probably it. I suppose from Limerick standpoint, it's been a pretty successful year at the moment. Alliance Hurling League champions, and obviously Munster, they were given as good as they got with all opponents. Maybe a comfortable semi-final, but they'll realise on Sunday that Kilkenny are a very formidable side given the battle 12 months ago. I suppose, get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways you can look at this year regarding Limerick. A lot of people will say that they're not the formidable force they were in maybe years gone by, and I suppose look at the results. There's only a point or two between most games they played this year. But Munster was a tough campaign, and I suppose they came through. I suppose beating Clare in the Munster final, albeit only by a point. I think it's more so not the results, though. It's the manner of the wins for me. It's like I suppose similar to Kilkenny in ways like they just seem to know how to win, and win games that they probably sometimes don't deserve to win. And I suppose that's embedded into Kilkenny, and I think for Limerick it's something they've developed themselves as a team, is that they don't seem to panic. They continue with the game they're playing. And I suppose we've seen it a lot of time over the last few years where games where have been really tight and they've just, they dug it out. And I suppose it's a sign of a really good team that, when the pressure does come on and the game is in the melting pot, that, a lot of the time they're thereabouts. And, I would have heard people after the semi-finals, when Kilkenny beat Clare, saying, "Oh, another handy All Ireland for Limerick." I think it's the opposite. I would fear this team completely for a couple of different reasons. Like Kilkenny's are going to have their own motivations. They haven't won in 8 years, or this is 8 years this year. I think TJ, possibly could be his last year. Obviously age is going against him. Just he'd love to go out on a high of winning All Ireland, and I think just the fact that Limerick are one game away to get into the status and to the not many teams have done it to 4 in a row, and I think that Kilkenny are going to be the one team that would like to stop Limerick doing that, and I think while Limerick have motivations, Kilkenny definitely have their own as well.
Yeah, Rory, get you in here from a Clare perspective. You would have had full view of Limerick and Kilkenny this season, so I suppose can I get your thoughts, maybe kind of coming into the season, but also the final this weekend?
Yeah, I suppose for a while it didn't look like you were going to have a Limerick Kilkenny final, especially halfway through the Munster Championship. In a way, like Limerick were, every game was down to the skin of their teeth, kind of just to get out of it. And I think it helped Limerick winning the Munster final was huge for them after the Munster campaign they had, and the fact that they've been on the road now for a few years, and even getting to the league final, I suppose as well. They didn't get much of a break that way, but winner gave them against Galway. They looked a bit more, especially in the second half. A lot more energy about them. First time this year that they really kind of hit that level. I'm saying that as well. Galway capitulate, but and from a Kilkenny point of view, I suppose like the main thing for Kilkenny was they showed in the semi-final and the Leinster final that they were able to hang in when things weren't going well and they were going through a bad patch. They were able to just hang in there in the game, and and be right in there at the finish. And even to an extent, last year in the All-Ireland final, there was dominated, but yet, right at the end of the game, they were still there and sort of flipped the result completely right at the end. So, going to make for an intriguing final, and all to play for, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Rory, that point in the semi-final against Clare where, Clare were, a couple of points down at half-time, but that, maybe midpoint of the second half where Clare got 2 points up. If you compare that to the Limerick-Galway game the day before, I think Limerick got to 3 or 4 points up. Galway just threw the towel in. But I suppose it's testament to Kilkenny, and it's just, look, it's the attitude they have and the work rate, and I suppose just that they never give up. And, 2 points down at that point to Clare, I think if you're a gambling man in running, you would have been back in Clare. But just it's Kilkenny, and this is what they do. They don't give up, and I suppose they keep fighting. And I think that's why this final Sunday it's going to go to the wire, because you have two teams similar in their their attitude and the work rate they bring towards the game, and trying to get a win over the line.
Yeah, Charlie,
you need a bit of luck as well, lads. And look, across the Kilkenny got that little bit of luck again, Clare in the semi-final, where the goal was called back for a free, and ultimately the goalie and the full back or whoever it was came out with the ball that time, and it was a bit foolish to be coming up the middle playing a short one. If you're playing a short one, you'd rather be out on the sideline where you can at least have some chance of covering it off. But Billy Ryan got a lovely little flick in, and who better to be picking up a ball than TJ Reid. And if I was, I wouldn't be playing a short one anywhere TJ Reid to be. I knew that for sure. So and I think TJ missed the goal last year. He had a chance of a goal, I think, in the semi-final or the final where he pulled the trigger himself. But this time, he was unselfish and drew the cover. And Owen Cody, I thought he was going to delay it. Now he nearly. If you look at the goal again, there was nearly a hook in, but he actually got there, but he had much time to spare now with the strike. I tell you that. So anyway, look at the. I suppose the one thing Kenny will do when they did last day was, Clare owned the first 20 minutes of the second half. That's called spade a spade, and only Kenny's they have that knack of hanging in there, and they don't panic, and they got a few scores at the vital time. And it's amazing how they turned it around. The fresh legs came in, and the bit of experience of Killian Buckley, Walter Welch, and Pádraig Welch and Richie. Walter got a free. Richie drew free where he was going nowhere at the time. It was a bit rash from was Conor Cleary that he should have stood him up rather than charging into him. And Pádraig, I think, slapped over one under the Cusick stand near the end as well. So that bench is going to be huge again on Sunday. We don't know whether David Blanchfield is going to play or not, and if he doesn't play, will he go will he go with experience, or chance maybe Dara Corcoran, who has the young legs, and there's not a full hour in Killian Buckley, there's not a full hour in Pádraig Welsh, or probably Walter, so he might go with who knows, maybe Dara Corcoran could be the man to come in there, right? If David don't make it. Then someone said that David was training last Saturday, so you hear all these things, but unfortunately the closed doors, there's a lot of things happen behind closed doors these days. So
you kind of know it's an important fixture when you hear the 1,000,001 rumours going around for both counties, really, to be fair. But I suppose, Charlie, kind of looking at the Kilkenny, the youth and experience, complementing each other so well, and even the likes of Tom Phelan, I think, could be playing a massive role for the game on Sunday.
Well, if he's going to take up Dermot Burns, he'll have a massive role to play. Yeah, it's unusual where you're hoping your halfback, or you're trying to stop your halfback, the opposition's halfback, from scoring more than what you want to score yourself. But hopefully that's just the way this Limerick team is, and that's the savage halfback line. Whether Declan Hanlon's in it or he's not in it, it's a serious halfback line, and we know what they're to do, the damage they're to do. And, I suppose last year it was strange. Gerard Hegarty had to free up the park last year, and I remember looking out for the Hogan stand, and Paddy Deegan was on, but Paddy's not a man marker. Paddy's more, he likes to do too much hurling to pick up a guy. And we were there. Everyone understands us. Would you just change him and go with Hegarty, because he was having that much of an influence on the game. And I remember coming down the stretch, and some people say it was a 2-point hammer, but we actually had a chance. We had 2 shots at goal to I think go ahead at one stage, and there was a couple of Limerick lads sitting beside me, and they were great, have fun out for the whole game. And look, obviously Limerick were winning well all the way, but squeaky bum time coming down last 10 minutes, so I was knocking great crack out of 2 guys so was beside me. But so look at it, it's a serious halfback line, and Kilkenny have a few young lads. There. There's a lot of lads there with no All-Ireland medals, so that's going to be, that's a big thing for them,
Absolutely.
That's a huge fact, I think, Charlie, because you talk about Kilkenny, and I listened to a few, I suppose, ex-players being interviewed this week, Owen Larkin, and the first question is how many medals and All-Stars do you have? But as you said, there's a lot of young guys in this team who are trying to carve their own career and win their own medals, and I suppose they're going to have more motivation. So obviously TJ has these medals, but like Siobhan Cody and Mullen and these players that I suppose they're really only starting out, so even though they're around a couple of years, they want to win as many medals as well Owen Larkin or any of these guys have as well,
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose Rory can get you in there, just in terms of Limerick kind of setup.
No All-Ireland medals. It's 2015 since I've been left.
Oh, apologies on the technical issues. Oh, okay. Charlie's gone for now, but I think he'll be back for the second half anyway, for sure. I suppose, Rory, can we get you in here just momentarily here? I suppose just even talking in terms of that from a Kilkenny perspective, I think Charlie's coming back on again here. Here. Hey, Charlie, Hurlings.
Yeah.
The beauty of live video streaming here into full effect. I suppose, Rory, we.
I think we've lost Mark there as well. I suppose I was just going to say, Kilkenny against Limerick the last couple of times in the league final, Kilkenny conceded the puck out to Limerick and let Limerick work the ball out, which I think is a very dangerous thing to do, because it's something they've been doing for 4 or 5 years, just their ability to work the ball up to scoring area. And then last year, I think Kilkenny were kind of looking over their shoulder at Gillane a lot last year, and the Limerick half-forward line did serious damage. Like, you can't afford to. I know you have to try and cut off the space in front of Gillane as much as possible. As we saw against Clare in the Munster final, when they weren't able to do that, the damage he did. Even the last day against Galway as well, there was serious damage from Gillane. Even though he had limited ball at times, but every time it went in, he caused havoc. So Yeah, it's just twice Kilkenny have tried 2 different things against Limerick forward line and it hasn't really worked to full effect. So
and I think like last year,
so
as you said, Rory, like the Limerick half forward line scored was 115 from in the final, you know. So I suppose it's a question for Kilkenny this year. You know, I suppose they've seen how Clare targeted the game against Limerick, and I suppose they left all that space, you know, in front of Gillan and Flanagan, and I suppose Limerick are from early on. You know, the intent was there. Every ball that was going in was played into Gillan, and I suppose if Kilkenny do sit back, you're probably allowing more room then for the half forward line, who are happy to take points from distance. So I suppose it'll be interesting to see. I think Galway worked it well for the first 20 minutes last day, having Mannion and I suppose Kincannon back around there. You know, I suppose it really, I suppose, shut down the ball going in towards Gillan is the main aim you can hope for. But I suppose, you know, I think last year, you know, Kilkenny will have learned a lot from giving that space and time to the half forward line. I suppose, as Charlie said a few minutes ago there, with Groel Hegarty getting the freedom in the park and scoring what he did, you know.
Yeah, just as well, with I suppose a team that have had the greatest, I suppose, joy in a way against, or who have been closest to Limerick when they've met them, have been Clare, and the big factor is you see Ryan Taylor and David Fitzgerald coming right back into the half back line to help them to turn over ball, and maybe that's something Kilkenny half forward line didn't do as well last year, because Kilkenny half back line were really exposed. It seemed to be 1-on-1 all the time, particularly with I can remember Hegarty switching wings and puck outs and just having 30 yards of space in front to run onto ball. And very interestingly, afterwards there was an interview with Nicky Quaid, and he was asked, like, I think it could have been Dermot Maloney who was saying to him, how, like, you must spend hours practicing the puck outs because they seem to just go exactly, the ball goes exactly to a T. And he said, no, I look for space, and I know if there's space there, if forward is left it to run into. So I'm just looking for space to hit it on. That's what Limerick did really well against Kilkenny. They were able to manage that space last year in the Leinster final, and I think Kilkenny then reacted that way in the league final this year by saying, well, we'll cut off that space from the puck out, pull them in back and fill all those gaps. But it just left Limerick a chance to puck to Barry Nash, and he dictated that league final. So it's probably back to the drawing board a small bit again. And I'd say, in a way, Kilkenny might be glad they made that league final, because they now know that tactic won't work either. So they have a chance to try something a bit different, and maybe it is just getting a ferocious work rate out of the half forward line, coming back and helping out the half back line.
I think you flip around from Kilkenny's puck outs then. I think Limerick last year, you know, I suppose sat off, you know, promoting maybe the Kilkenny to take the short puck out. And I suppose the main aim is like the fear of when Kilkenny go along, that's how dangerous they are. You know, the goal threat is in there. TJ Reid, Mossy Keown, you know, they've scored 15 goals this year, you know, to Limerick's 9. Now, I suppose if you look at the other side of it, they've conceded 11 to Limerick's 4. So I suppose when they're scoring more than they're conceding, but I suppose that some of them goals have come against maybe lesser opposition, without disrespecting counties. You know, I think Antrim got 3, Wexford scored 4. You know, now I suppose on days where maybe the same appetite mightn't have been there for Kilkenny, considering they were through already against Wexford. But I sure still, with facing into Gillan, probably the most on form up there, you know, striker or forward this year with Widow and Cody, the two of them are I suppose the two main guys this year for their teams. I'm sure it's going to be a real concern for Hugh Lawler going into the final this weekend.
And also, like, in the semi-final, they conceded maybe 4 or 5 clear goal scoring opportunities. Like, one was taken, but one disallowed. But there was other chances as well, only for the brilliance of Owen Murphy inside there. So, like, they were opened up 4 or 5 times, and Limerick might be that bit more clinical, you know, with chances, goal chances when they present themselves, as they usually are. As we know, Flanagan as well is very good to finish a goal chance when it arises. And we saw Hegarty's what was a half chance last year that turned out to be an absolute bullet into the top corner. So that's something Kilkenny cannot concede as many goal chances to Limerick as they did in the semi-final. You know, it's just something that, like, if the Kilkenny are to have a chance, they have to limit Limerick to maybe just that 1 goal or whatever, and they might need a couple of goals. One thing that Charlie was saying was that you know, that Kilkenny have mixed it up this year, and we can see that. I just think they're going to actually go along a bit more in the final than they have so far, in that if they were to learn one positive from what Galway did against Limerick was that Galway were able to, at the very start of the game, when they were man-to-man inside, they were able to go along and they had the ball winners in there at the start to cause Limerick a bit of trouble. Second half, that wasn't going to work with the extra Limerick defender there, and Galway seemed to find them more often than not. But it's just something I think Kilkenny won't drop a sweeper. And when they go along, they'll probably look, long ball into Cody, maybe inside. Billy Ryan, like he's good in the air, as we've seen. Doesn't actually seems to show more promise than he delivers. Like at times, seems to just get that 1-2 scores a game, but has the potential in the air as well to grab a ball. So I think Kilkenny might see that as rather than trying to work through a middle third where Limerick, have kind of outworked teams at middle third, maybe to try and bypass it a bit more than we've seen from Kilkenny so far this year.
Yeah, but I think that I do agree that Kilkenny will go along, but because I think there is a narrative out there, and it's probably not far wrong, is that like you're going to have to score 2 or 3 goals to beat this Limerick team. I think it's easier said than done. I think this year, so they've only conceded 1 goal a game. When they did concede goals, and I think it's a real testament to Limerick. Without arguably the best cornerback in recent times, and Sean Finn missing since the earlier rounds in the round robin in Munster, is what Declan had in the last day. I suppose obviously Richie English has been named to be injured again for Sunday. So like that's 3, you could say, defenders out of maybe a pick of 6 or 7, and I suppose it leaves them a little bit light if any player gets injured on Sunday. But I think it's a testament to the defensive unit that the likes of Sean Finn goes down injured, and you can bring in Mike Casey, and it just seems to be as seamless as it was. I think if you were to compare that with other teams, like if Galway were to lose Dahi Burke or Cathal Barr for Tipperary, I think it'd be you'd feel it in games. I don't think Limerick have showed that, especially with Sean Finn, because he's unbelievable, especially I suppose a man marker. If you want some, I think like Sean Finn would have been definitely earmarked for Owen Cody this weekend had he been fit. So I think it's a huge testament to Limerick that they've come through without a player the caliber of Finn.
Yeah, and even in the Munster final when Casey had to go off and Hannon, and they were under pressure the last 10 minutes. There was a few heroic blocks or whatever from the back line. Like they weren't going to wilt in the sense like if Clare were going to get a score, they were going to earn it. And that's a testament to the lads coming in as well, and to the rest of the players that they're not thrown off kilter by losing 1 or 2 players through major injury, which often teams can be, senior centre back go, and then also Casey go in the space of whatever 10 minutes of hurling, like can affect the team, but they seem to, as you said, kind of react quite well to it. And I suppose it's funny, in the second half of the Galway game, you would never notice Limerick were missing anyone. The way the backline looks so comfortable. I suppose it'll only be if they're under real pressure will cracks appear. Like, and as you said, they're kind of at the end of. If they get another injury, like it'll be questions like, are they going to have to rejig the backline? Because in terms of full backline players, like you're talking Finn, if English is out,
Aaron Costello is probably the next in, I'd say, and
who hasn't had much time this year, So it's tough one, I suppose. The other end then, with Blanchfield injured, I was just wondering, would Cian Kenny start to maybe Fogarty drop back into the half back line? Fogarty played a lot of hurling in the backs. I was just surprised this year. I was going to ask Charlie about it. I thought Cian Kenny would be a shoe-in to start this year. And even when he went against Clare, he did bring a bit of energy to the middle as teams were tiring. And
he showed a lot of promise last year, didn't he? Especially end of the year.
You'd have thought like he'd have been shoe-in this year. But maybe, I suppose, Derek Ligon's kind of looking at it and thinking if Kilkenny are there with 10 minutes to go in games, to not just to bring on the kind of, let's say, the older, more experienced players, to have a bit of youth and energy as well to come in too. But you just, with Blanchfield injured, does that test that now? Will you have to go with Cian Kenny from the start maybe and drop Fogarty back? You just wonder. Sometimes the injury is more what happens not having the guy on the bench, even with Jason Flynn for Galway the last day, just not having somebody to bring in. Mightn't affect the start in 15, but it might affect with 10-15 minutes to go when you turn around to see who's next man in. But look, it's going to be, as you said, Kilkenny just going to make this a tight game. I do think Limerick a better team. I think Kilkenny the last day were heavily reliant on frees from TJ and also Cody. The other four forwards, like even TJ from play, let's say, he's no longer a scoring force from play. Still brilliant to win ball, win frees, and best free taker in the country without a doubt. Just from conceding a free from let's say from your own 65, or from their 65 up, like it's basically a score. You know, he's a stat accurate. Mark was saying last week he's 90-something% scoring average in frees, and like that includes frees that drop short as well from distance. You know what I mean? They're just points for a freeze, so just shows the threat he is. And I just think Kilkenny need more from the other forwards. Like they can't, like Owen Cody may not score 2-6, whatever it is the next day. They're going to need other lads to step up. I think Adrian Mullen could be a factor. He, as you know, was out injured for a while, got that game under his belt the last day. At times his delivery was excellent. I just see it, if Kilkenny are kind of to win this game, they're going to have to maybe win midfield, and he probably the man there himself and forward. They have been a good partnership so far. Forwarding more from the defensive point, and then Mullen from the attacking point in midfield. And you just wonder, like, they need a huge game from him, I think, if they are to beat Limerick on Sunday.
Yeah, I think with Cody and TJ, I suppose, like maybe 80% of scores came from them two guys in the Clare game. And I agree, they're going to need a lot more, especially from maybe the half hour down midfield. But I think Mullen, you know, he was out for a good couple of weeks. I'm sure that game is going to stand to him. You know, he's going to get back up to the speed of it. But I think looking at the subs Kilkenny have to bring on, like other teams are bringing on younger guys, you know, with very little experience. And, you know, I suppose they're bringing in legs is mostly what they're bringing. But I suppose you look at the options Kilkenny have, like the likes of Walter and Hogan, and, you know, these guys that have, Jesus, probably between them, you know, hundreds of caps. And to be able to bring these guys on with, you know, 10 minutes or so to go to try and turn the game, you know, I think it's incredible that just to have that option. Okay, they mightn't bring you the pace that other, you know, younger players will bring, but just the experience, just to pull a game through. And I think, you know, when Richie Hogan came on against Clare, I think you really unsettled the Clare backs, just because they know, I suppose, how dangerous he is and can be. And you know, I think you know, the likes of Walter coming on there to potentially run straight at defences, you know, maybe with 10 or 15 minutes left to go, it's you know, I think if you're in that team, he's not a player you want to see coming onto the pitch.
And I think as well with Galway the last day, when they were in trouble to winning puckouts, they didn't have somebody like Walter Walsh who's really strong in the air to come in. So if Kilkenny are in trouble there, like, they always have that plan that a man can go on and they can target on a puck out, especially if Limerick are pushing up and they have to go along and they aren't having much joy. Yeah, it's just, I suppose, the last like the likes of Tom Phelan, who had a good Leinster campaign, he needs to really step it up now for the final. Martin Keown as well. These boys kind of shone through Leinster, but I just thought, you know, in the All-Ireland semi-final, you know, they kind of wilted a small bit as the game went on. And now, as you said, though, he had the options to bring on from the bench, like, especially with 10 minutes to go. And as we said earlier, like, not just the older experienced guys, but having that bit of legs as well is important too.
No, I know we could say, like, you know, we talked about Limerick and their, I suppose, scraping through games. The one question mark I would have over Kilkenny, looking at, I suppose, this year's games, well, to go back to the Wexford game, Kilkenny got into, you know, got 2 early goals. They were 7 points up with maybe 15 minutes gone in the first half. But yes, Wexford went in, I think it was a point or two up at half time. And it was that turnaround from being 7 up to basically switching off. Wexford got 2 goals and to be going in behind. I think we'll bring that forward to the Leinster final. Kilkenny were incredible in the first half. But there was a 10-point swing in that second half where Galway turned around at 8-point deficit at half time to go 2 up into added time. Okay, and maybe, I suppose, a fortuitous, as Charlie said earlier, you do need luck along the way. And I suppose they got luck that day as well, where, you know, Mannion, you know, tries to boot the ball as far as he can and falls into Buckley, and, you know, he slots it home. Well taken goal, but I suppose it was in ways fortuitous. So, you know, I suppose that's one thing, if I was a Kilkenny supporter, is these lapses where they start the game, you know, at a rate of knots, but switch off for a period and let teams back into it. And I suppose that's one thing that would concern me if I was Derek Lyng going into the weekend.
And the danger is that they can see goals during those spells. Like, they've kind of gotten away with it. Even against Clare, there was a 7-point turnaround in, let's say, 15 minutes. And there was that chance where one Murphy saved, and I think it was really 2 Clare lads got in the way on the rebound of each other. Like, if Clare had tapped in a goal while they were on top as well at that stage, to maybe go 5-6 up. So yeah, it is a worrying thing for Kilkenny that they're having these huge lapses, and they're turning around, as you said there, 10-point turnaround Leinster final, 7-point turnaround semi-final against Wexford. It was 10 points wiped in 5 minutes nearly. So Marcus, just one thing with the Hawkeye Sidekick name. Have any of you had doubts about Hawkeye here? I know
I've had it since 2014, to be perfectly honest with you, Rory. Even the minor game with Galway, that's how this Hawkeye Sidekick got christened. It was literally looking straight towards it, looked like a point, was flagged wide, obviously, and that's how Hawkeye Sidekick, the name kind of stuck, really. So, yeah, to be honest with you, Mike Collins, I'm very wary of it, particularly with side angle shots.
Yeah, you had the Galway Derry game last year as well, which was shown. And then a couple of times this year it's come up data unavailable or whatever. I'm just wondering as well, like even there was one, the very first Hawkeye the last day, Rowan Cody. Now I couldn't tell, and I was kind of behind it, whether it was point. It looked like it was over the post to me, whether it was a point or not. But where they showed it, when they came up on the screen, where they showed the ball going through, definitely wasn't where it was. It was higher and up further left, you get me? So I just kind of wonder sometimes, the spot where the ball went in, it definitely wasn't that spot, because as I said, I was behind the ball and it was swinging right to left. But so I just have doubts about it, and it's just something that's so crucial that the game could be decided on it, and it's something that you'd want 100% certainty in. I know the tennis, the tennis, you have a smaller venue and they have cameras all around it or whatever. It's just, I think, like big open area like Hill 16. And you just wonder there, like where the Hawkeye cameras are situated and stuff. You know what I mean? For I don't know. It's just something that I just thought of from the semi-final, where I just I was shocked at where they actually put the slitter. Let's say, and for All Ireland final, you want these things to be perfect.
Absolutely. Well, in fairness, it's a big day for John Keenan and his umpires, isn't it? And the officiating crew, I suppose. Guys, been all of Johnny Keenan for his Munster final performance last year. I suppose we're expecting similar here, are we? Free-flowing game from minute one, Kieran?
I think so, because you looked at that final last year, the Munster final, it was one of the games. It was a game for the ages, and I think there was hits in it. There was possibly yellow card offences that weren't given, but I don't think either set of fans left that stadium that day complaining, over certain, potential cards. Keelan let it go. He faced the consequences after it. I think he didn't referee a game for the bones of 10, 11 months. But I don't think he's anything to lose here. He's due to retire. He turns 50. He can't referee inter-county games anymore. So I don't think he's anything to lose. So why not go out and try and be the referee of the potentially one of the best finals in years gone by? And I suppose we don't, as long as we're not talking about the referee at the end of the game, I suppose that's a sign of when the referees had a good game, is where we're not talking about him. But I think Keenan he's been a very, I suppose over the years, I think he's been a very good referee. I think he's been consistent, and I suppose we've been talking about referees a lot this year, and it's probably with Fergal Horgan after stepping away, and now Keenan, and I think there's one or two more to go in the next few years. I think Paul Dwyer isn't far behind either. Jesus, what's left? I think it's worrying times regarding referees, especially at the top level.
I think the question Sunday is, will Keenan ref it the way he likes the game, or is he under strict instructions now? And after last year, to kind of rule it not to the letter of the law, but not let so much go. Because I suppose the dangerous of always being a final, players are wound up and there's a nervous energy there that if he does let things go in the final early, that he's going to end up with, a lot of incidents that, he probably prefer to avoid. So I suppose it's a big day for him as well. Like he needs to be thinking about how he's going to approach it. People want a spectacle for the All-Ireland final as well, as we saw the last year's Munster final, but he has to be, there's a fine line, I suppose, and only the best referees know. Fergal Horgan was very good at that as well, letting it go as much as possible, but also, not letting it get out of hand or out of control, and not having incident after incident, because, you don't want those to be the talking points. You want the scores and goals and hooks and blocks and everything to be talking about, rather than, was it a potential red card or not red card, or, unsavory stuff and kind of sideline, things like that. So, yeah, it's a fine line. I suppose I'm delighted to see that he was appointed for it, because I think he is a standout referee over the last couple of years, and especially last year, I felt he was hard done by in how he was treated after, because like 99% of hurling people enjoyed, what they saw in the Munster final, and it was whatever officials in Croke Park anyway, or the referees authority, like were the ones who had the opposite view, and Keenan kind of suffered as a result, I suppose, not getting another game.
Absolutely. Yeah, apologies, guys. We had a massive Wi-Fi issue here anyway. No, Charlie Carter also had big connectivity issues. So apologies on the live video stream absence here of Charlie. Guys, I'm just thinking in terms of some of the key matchups here. I suppose you may have talked about it.
Okay, we'll go on.
We got the hint. We got the hint in the matchups. I think for me, the two, I suppose we've probably touched on them already, is the two forwards that we've, in Aaron Gillan and Owen Cody, and I suppose it's the form they're bringing into the game. I suppose I saw Owen Cody up front. I was at that Wexford game earlier in the year, and he scored 3-1 that day, and he was incredible. Just the pace he has, and I think even looking back to the last day, like the points he scored were from all over, all sorts of angles, and like he's only 22. I suppose it's better he's going to get. And I think this year he's really stood up and put his hand up. I suppose he has experience of big days with Ballyhale.
Who do you put in them, Kieran?
I suppose Limerick historically don't man mark. So I suppose it all, I think if Sean Finn had played, Sean Finn would have been marking him straight away. I don't see Mike Casey or Barry Nash picking him up. I don't know, potentially. I know it's hard to know. It's really hard to know. I think TJ Reid, Dan Morrissey, will go on TJ. You've also Mossy Keown there as an aerial threat to look after as well. So,
I think they might go Mike Casey.
Yeah, they probably will have to. Yeah,
because I think Dan would be a good match for TJ Reid. Conor Cleary, like from play, did reasonably. Grew into the second half, and in the last day, and just stopping and winning that aerial ball, TJ, like, because he's very good to offload it. So that's probably, they're probably the two matchups we'll see. Also, like, Limerick won't really want Barry Nash in a man marking role either, you'd imagine, because he's so important bringing out the ball.
Yeah, I think as well for Dan, like TJ will, I suppose we saw on the last day he was, I suppose, getting out the field doing a lot of work, and I suppose at times it might leave Dan free. I suppose if Uncody or Mossy Keown are in there to assist Casey, but I think, like, to me, Cody and Gillan are going to be the real handfuls for both managers to try and come up with a way of holding them.
Charlie, who would you put on Gillan?
Oh, it's only one man for Gillan. That's Hugh Lawler. So that I said Mikey Butler pick up Peter Casey and Tommy Welch for
Flanagan.
Yeah, Flanagan. I'd already mind which of the cornerbacks pick up who, and it's definitely Hugh all day long for Gillan. He's a big long reach as well, Hugh, and you often see Gillan kind of leaning back and putting one over his shoulder, And there's one thing about Hugh Lawler, he's a savage reach, and he, if you can, if you're a forward, you can stop one of them two shots early in the game. You're going to pose the doubts in the player's head. You know what I mean? So, and Gillan, and look, I know Gillan scored 3 or 4 points last year, but Hugh had a decent game on him, and I don't think we have anyone better. Mark money, simple as that.
Yeah.
As regards,
my view is like, if he scores 3-4 points,
my guess he'll probably pick up Owen Cody, but I'm not sure if he's good enough to mark him. It's hard to see Barry Nash picking up, because Barry likes to saunter up the field every now and again, so that would limit his excursions up the field. So I know Mike is buck and everything, but just Owen Cody, that's his power, pace, speed, and he has some amount of hurling as well, skill.
Yeah.
So he's really hurling out his skill in terms of the chance.
And we're just saying, Charlie, how young he is, like only 22.
Yeah. And the captaincy seems to be sitting well on his shoulders as well. It doesn't seem to be any burden to him.
Yeah.
But look, I was listening to you there while I was off, and Kilkenny do need to get more out of the half-hour line. Certainly, John Donnelly didn't have a great game the last day. Billy Ryan drifted in and out, and obviously got the little vital flick for the goal that Owen Cody got. And Mossy, just, that Mossy hadn't done a whole lot of hurling in the last month or 6 weeks since the Wexford game. So he'd be hoping and Adrian Mullen will kick on from that game. But definitely, like Tom Phelan, Billy Ryan, John Dundee will have to up their performances from the semi-final. Or will, the 37 title won't be going back this year.
Yeah, I was just saying as well, like last year, I suppose one thing Clare have done well against Limerick is working back Ryan Taylor and David Fitzgerald working back into the half-back line, which Kilkenny probably didn't do as well last year at times, and left the Limerick half-forward line, gave that too much space then.
Yeah, well, look at Kilkenny is going to have some role to play, whether it'll be a starting role or come off the bench. Now, last year he just wasn't physically old enough and strong enough to go up again, the lads. But I mean, he's another year under his belt. He's kind of our Keane Lynch for one word. He hurls the very same way. He's a good at the wisp. Does the spectacular. You don't know how he's going to do. We shoot a couple of 2 or 3 points if given the opportunity. Usually takes the right options and full of energy. And I suppose we have the few lads there, serious. I won't call them all heads, but around a while and experience. But this guy is just, I just like him as a hurler, and he's kind of lad I'd love to see playing corner forward and drift out and see what he can do.
Similar to kind of what Peter Casey's doing for Limerick.
Something. So
Yeah.
Would you see any areas you target, like for matching Limerick, over the Munster Championship this year? If you see area you think you might be able to exploit?
I'd say, look, Kenny won't want to be landing the ball down the Limerick half-back line. I mean, you're talking about the Cookouts going might go short, and they might be trying to work a short one out to try and go long then and get it over make the half-back line turn. But you certainly don't want to be thrown down on that. Burns, Hannon or Dunno and Hayes will be there, because there are three savage guys there. So they'll be trying to get that half back to turn, and you could see another one being lobbed in high and chances between TJ and Dan Morrissey and Mitchell Square. So everything will be tried out early in the game just to see if there's any little kink in the team, and I'm sure Owen Cody will be fed a few balls to see can he get the better of Mike Casey. And it's often if you can get as a forward, if you can get that first ball and do some constructive way, it's a huge you're off them for the day. But like any forward, if you lose the first one, you're under a bit of pressure then with the second one coming in. But I suppose the key area is going to be around that centre field. Like we got totally blown out of the water in centre field last year, totally blown apart there. We just didn't work, and we didn't have backup maybe as we have this year. So I'm sure Derek will go back over last year's All-Ireland final and with a fine home and look at areas where Kilkenny did well and areas where not so well. And what I hope to God is that someone goes with Hegarty, from the start. That was a huge problem last year for Kilkenny, and it wasn't addressed during the game.
One thing about Hegarty, this year I suppose the form has been, maybe earlier in the year, a little bit questionable, but I suppose he does have the reputation of being a big player and on the big day, and he turns up on the big day. And I suppose Ling isn't going to take the chance on him not performing to maybe the heights he performed last year, and I suppose he is going to have to take special attention, isn't he?
He's a serious operator. Okay, his form has dropped a little bit this year, but form has been pretty class permanent, and we all know what he can do, and he seems to like the big occasion too. The bigger the occasion, the better he rises to it. Like so, he'll be looking forward to this. Has taken a few little knocks and criticism during the year, but he's a serious operator, and I wouldn't like to be given the freedom of the park again today. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Suppose, guys, can we get a few predictions from you? Suppose Charlie, we'll start with you first. Pro Kilkenny man. Can you see the All-Ireland going to River North?
Look, for Kilkenny to win, I think they'll have to score 3 goals, which is a big ask for them. We won't outscore points, I think, against Limerick, so we'll have to get 3 and try and hold Limerick to 1. I know you were saying, I could hear you saying, hold Limerick to 1 and Kilkenny score 2. I think we might have to score a third one to get over the line. It's a big ask, but in that full forward line, I think we have serious match winners. Look, Kilkenny will have to hurl better than the Hurl this year, so they'll have to up their performance again. So it's patches of all the games this year where they dropped off for 10 or 15, and you don't win all Ireland final by dropping off for 10 or 15 minutes. So if they can if they can produce their best performance of the year, and they'll use it, and they're definitely in with a shout. The bookies don't usually get around. I think it was 4-11 and 11-4 Kilkenny, so that sounds like about a 7 or 8 point picture for Limerick according to Paddy Power anyway. But I think we might be a little closer than that. So for me,
I think so too.
Look, but everything will have to go right, and we'll have to get huge performance. We'll have to get 2 or 3 goals, and if that happens, it'll be the 37th title will be coming back to the north.
Very good. Rory, can we get you in there? I suppose you're probably the neutral in all this tonight. Who do you feel this will be winning Lee McCarthy on Sunday at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, I just think Limerick, I know it's hard to base looking at 2 semi-finals, but I just think Limerick, they haven't had those lapses like Kilkenny have had. And the danger is when Kilkenny have a lapse, if Limerick throw a couple of goals in there during that spell, which, could have happened in the semi-final. Look, it's going to be the only thing with Kilkenny, as we know, it's going to be right down to the wire with them. This isn't going to be, as Charlie was saying, 7 or 8 points. I don't see that at all. But I just think maybe Limerick might get through it. As I said, I was very worried for them in the Munster Championship. They definitely looked like they were, I don't want to say in decline at the time, but they looked tired and they were lacking a bit of freshness. But I think they've got that back. So I think they're going to be very hard to beat. Last year I gave you the Road Hegarty man of the match at 10-1. This year I'm going to say Tom Morrissey, because Hegarty we watched so much. Tom Morrissey might do a bit of damage over the other side. Or for Kilkenny point of view, Adrian Mullen is 20-1 man of the match. And if Kilkenny are to win, he's going to have a major game. So there's my 2 tips for the weekend. But yeah, maybe Limerick just to shade it. But yeah, after both semi-finals, I thought Limerick were going to, I couldn't see Kilkenny winning, but as the game's getting closer and looking back over it, and maybe Kilkenny exploiting those couple of injuries Limerick have in the back line, Kilkenny full forward line, as Charlie was saying, getting in there for 2 goals, 3 goals, maybe 4 if they have to, but it certainly has happened in All-Irelands before, and remember Walter Walsh coming in a replay, scoring 3 goals there out of the blue, so look, I'll give Kilkenny a shot, but I just think Limerick might shade it.
Okay. And Kieran?
Yeah, I'm all about motivations, and I think last year when Limerick played Kilkenny, John Coyley would have been using 2019 as the stick to beat the team with. That these guys knocked you out, and I suppose there was other storylines the same day, but I think this year the motivations. Okay, Limerick have the obvious one of winning 4 in a row, but for me, the Kilkenny will want to stop Limerick winning 4 in a row. They're up at that hurl, and they're up there with one of the only or the 2 teams that have done it. And what better than for them to stop Limerick doing it? I think that'll be major motivation. And I think last year they'll feel that, while I think maybe Limerick, I suppose around the field players won their own battles, but there was still only 2 points in that game, and it was any day there's only 2 points, a puck of a ball, there's nothing in it, and I suppose we know hurling, we saw it in the Leinster final. Galway thought they had that game won, and a goal at the end, the sniped away from. So I agree. I don't think it's going to be 7 or 8 points. I think this, if you're a neutral going to the game, you're going to get your value for money. I think this is going all the way, and I think similar to last year, I'd say, a point to 3 points between both teams. Look, I'm obviously going to give it to Limerick. I think they've. On your champions, and until you're beaten, I think you get the respect that's due to you. And I think, Kilkenny, I have the height of respect for them, and I suppose admiration. I'm a Limerick man living in Wexford. They mightn't say the same around here about Kilkenny, but I think in Limerick, Kilkenny are admired, and I suppose we all grew up watching the Kilkenny and in the early 2000s and how good they were, and I suppose we never thought we'd even win 1 All-Ireland after mine get to the position we're in today. So. Look, I think I'm going to say Limerick to win it, but I say similar to Rory, I think a point 2 between the 2 teams.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Guys, we might wrap it up there. Apologies for some of the technical issues tonight, but many thanks, Charlie, for coming on tonight. was a magnificent insight as always from yourself. You know, such a legend of the game, and many thanks to Rory and Kieran as well. I suppose next week we'll probably dissect the All-Ireland final anyway, and maybe get your verdicts on the All-Star awards and maybe Player of the Year, guys. But I suppose until then, lads, enjoy the game on Sunday and may the best team win.
Cheers, Mark.
Thank you.